Right. Oops. Okay, and so I cannot see the chat, but I'll invite you to ask questions and then we can come back to it because I really want to have time to talk with you and get to your questions. So thank you so much, Kirti, for your help. And welcome everyone. I'm really happy that so many of you here. So yeah, it's really inspiring. Don't hesitate to say in the chat where you're from, where you're calling from, and where you're at in your journey. Are you looking for a job? Are you looking to see how you can do within your job? Because that's probably be also part of what we'll be discussing after. So during this keynote, what I wanted to talk about was what we do at the week and how we use social studies and social science to see how we can mobilize more broadly and the use of emotion to create these social tipping points. And I believe that's knowledge that is super useful for people who are trying to mobilize on climate, whether they're in their job, in their company, or thinking about creating their own project or thinking about joining a climate project. I think it's knowledge that anyone can use, so I thought it would be useful to share it with you today. So maybe just to tell you a little bit about the week, I'll present it a bit more, but we launched in January of 2023, so we had been working on the prototype for 2 years prior to that, but we're still a quite young project. And we launched because we came to the conclusion that we are facing this unprecedented ecological crisis. And I guess if you're here today, you know about that. And we see scientists and we see reports coming up all the time. And the COP, there's like always like meetings and we keep hearing about it. But it doesn't seem to be driving the ambitious collective action that we need. We still lack this collective momentum to create, as you can see on the picture, this like tipping point. So people know the fact, but they don't act. We see pioneers who have started to change and like really become active and change the way they work and they live their lives, but it's pioneers and it's still a minority, and we're not getting this broad middle to create this real change. And we figured out that there's something that is not fully working and we need to build a new experience that is using science, but also social science and emotion to create this change. So yeah, what social science tell us is that informing is not enough, unfortunately. We've looked at other campaigns that have been done on very different topics, like campaigns on AIDS or on smoking, to see how you create broad change on a topic. And what we see is that basically when the topic is scary, having just data doesn't really help create the change, because we just see it as another article. It's like, oh, smoking is bad, but I see it there, or and I go on with my lives. And that's really what I was telling in the keynote this morning, is that, and I see it myself, oh, we see what's happening in Spain, oh my God. And then we go on with our lives and we go to work. Oh, we see what's happening in Florida, and then we have to go get the children at daycare. And so we move on with our lives. And because it's scary, is just an amount of facts, and we create distance with it because it's like, ooh, I see that if I open this door, something's really scary behind it. And so to protect ourselves, we just use it as data, as if it didn't fully have impact on us. And that's what we call, I guess you've heard about it, but it's like cognitive dissonance, is this idea of we don't align between what we know and what we've learned and the actions we take. There's a difference between what we do daily and the information we have. And it's especially strong on the environmental crisis because of the magnitude of the problem, because it is scary and we understand it's not just climate, it's biodiversity, it's pollution, it's a complex topic. And so it reinforces this distance that we put because it's a way to protect us, and it's actually really strong and really helpful to have cognitive dissonance. It's a way of put this at distance until you can really deal with it, until you have time to process it. The problem is that today we have a society where we run from one thing to the other, and so we never have this time to fully process what's going on and to create the deep inner change that we need to go from there. And one way to address cognitive dissonance is to go through the heart. So we tend to see humans as just like a body and a brain, and sometimes even just a brain. But we do have hearts and we do have emotions. And even though they don't always have a big space in our society, they're it's emotions that will power change. So to really reconcile the actions we take with the values we hold, we need this time to process the emotions that the information creates. And so that's for us, and looking at social studies, one of the reasons why we've been having the data for, I mean, now it's 50 years, and that we haven't taken the action needed is because we're not letting this information truly get to the hearts and let it, have the emotions that go with it. And another thing that has really inspired what we do at the week is what we call pluralistic ignorance, is the idea that we always feel like we're the only one feeling concerned. So I don't know if you have this. Maybe you are really outspoken about your engagement and the causes that you care about, and so you are seen as the activist in your group. But there are really interesting studies on pluralistic ignorance that show that actually a lot of people are concerned, but they think they're the only one being concerned. So I don't remember exactly the numbers, but most of the time it's a 20% difference between if you tell people, for example, in Germany, if you take a number of people, you ask them how many of them feel concerned about climate change, you might have 70% feeling concerned. If you ask them how many percentage of the German population do you think feels concerned, they'll say 50% or 40%. So we project that other people don't care because we look at the way they act and we think, they're not changing, they're not talking about it, so probably they don't care, and so I'm the only one who cares. And because we are social animals, we need to belong, we need to feel that we're part of the group, and so there's always something really scary about being like, okay, this is a real issue and I want to act on it, but if I start acting on it, will I be excluded or will I feel isolated from my group of friends? If all my friends take the plane to go on holidays, then if I stop taking a plane, then will I be excluded from my group of friends? So we're actually very influenced by the people that are around us. And so if so pluralistic ignorance has a really strong influence on delaying the change, because we don't want to be the first one acting. We're waiting to see what other people are doing. And so it's creating this silence where actually everyone cares about a topic, but no one talks about it, and everyone thinks they're the only one who care. So these are, yeah. So these are two really important social studies that we use. How do we get out of this collective silence, especially if a lot of people care? And how do we let this data get to our hearts and actually create spaces where we can process what's going on, and so we can allow it to go to our hearts and be a powerful way to drive change? So that's the 4 principles that we use to build the week experience. It was, okay, we need to create these spaces where it's emotionally safe to engage, because climate information is stressful. And so either we don't tell people what's going on, but if we tell them, we need them to have spaces to fully come to terms with that. The second was that we are social creatures. We cannot deal with this alone. If we deal with this alone, either we'll end up feeling really isolated from our groups, or we not going to change because we rather belong than change our behaviors. So we need to work with social groups, and we need to create something that is collective. The third principles were that we didn't want people to just take action with like, oh, we do this experience and now we ask you to recycle. For us, what's really important is the inner shift and the change of narrative. Even though it might lead to action, 6 months after, and it might take time, we'd rather have a deep change within the person that goes through the week, instead of like quick action taking. And the fourth principle is that we believe that joy, pride, and courage are real sources of virality and action taking. And we don't want to rely so much on fear and guilt, especially because what we see in social studies is that this fear is what makes us take so much distance with the topic. So if we feed that feeling, then we might reinforce the cognitive dissonance that people have. So relying on these 4 principles, we created an experience that we call the week. So it's a group experience that you can go through with your family. I've done it with my parents. I've done it with my business school friends. I went to like the people who are more part of the broad middle, who are not super active on the topic, and said, guys, do you want to join me and do this experience together? You can do it with your colleagues. So group experience, it's a journey that you meet 3 times during a week. That's why we call it the week. Some people do it over 2 weeks, some people do it over 3 weeks. That's fine. And you meet, and over this week, you're going to go through a U-shaped journey that I explain later. And each time you will watch a documentary together. So it's 3 episodes of a documentary where we actually talk to you. So you're being super active. And then you continue with a guided conversation, not a debate, a conversation where everyone can express their feelings. This U-shaped journey is built like, how do we tell you the reality, but how do we not let you like, sometimes you watch a documentary and it's very interesting, but super depressing. And at the end, you just cry and, and you don't know what to do. So for us, we really wanted to make sure that people at the end of the journey, they are back really high and ready to act and feeling joyful. So the episode 1, it's a bit the slap in the face, I have to say. It's the hard one. It's really telling people how bad will it get. We do have people who cry, so it's, even when it's done at work. Episode 2, we didn't want to go straight into solutions like, oh, that's the problem, that's the solution, but really get a step deeper and tell people what is the story and what is the narrative that brought us here. It didn't happen like this. And how is there a new story and a new narrative emerging that could get us out of there. So it's really questioning the deeper questions that are lying behind this topic. And episode 3 is what can you do? What can we do collectively? What have we done before as a human species that has took us out of really difficult problems, and really getting this sense of we can do it, especially in some countries, like in France, for example. There's really this idea, there's a strong powerlessness, like we can't really do anything about it, it's too big, so I'm gonna shut it down. And so really connecting people to the fact that they can actually do something about it. And something that we do over the course of these 3 weeks is really getting the topic closer to people. So one thing we've seen is that people really distance themselves with the topic, especially the audience we talk to. So we address people from Europe and Northern America, except Mexico. And so it's people who tend to feel like it's gonna happen in 50 years on another continent and it's not going to reach them. And so not talking only about climate, but talking about biodiversity and pollution is a way to really get the topic way closer to them and show them that it's not about a quick fix. It's not just about dealing with climate change. It's about it's about changing the way we collectively function. Because it's a mix of different problems. I thought because I've been talking a lot, maybe showing you the first few minutes so you get a sense of, and I think it could be really interesting for the projects you're working on, but the way we chose to talk to people and to really be on a peer-based relationship. So it's not everything we talk about is based on science, and we have scientists who have reviewed everything we say in the movies, but we chose to not, there are no experts in the movie. It's people like you and I, and the way they made choices, and it's really discussing as peers. So I thought it was interesting to maybe show you. I'm not sure I've shared my sound. Can you tell me if you, I'm just gonna, okay, I think, oh. Can you tell me if you hear the sound?
Hey everybody.
I'm gonna just look at.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can
you
hear
can hear the
hear it?
sound.
Can hear it.
Oh,
Yes.
amazing! Great. Okay, so I'll leave you with the first minutes.
The week. Disaster. Bonjour à tous. Bienvenue dans The Week. Hi, and welcome to The Week.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Welcome to The Week.
Glad you're here.
My name is Frank Johnson.
My name's Ashley McClure.
John and Holly Arbuckle at Singing Pastors Farm.
My name is Yancey, and I'm really glad that you're here.
Bah ça y est, c'est le premier épisode. Donc je vous souhaite vraiment de vivre une belle expérience.
And so excited that you're settling in and hope that you enjoy this conversation and that it's really meaningful.
Mettez votre ceinture parce que ça va décoiffer pas mal aujourd'hui.
1, 2, 3. Perfect. Welcome.
Yes, welcome everyone. Right now you might be at home with your friends or your family, or maybe you're at work with your colleagues.
And yeah, it's exciting for us to picture you wherever you are with your group, and we're grateful that you decided to join us.
My name is Helen.
And I'm Frederick.
And we're married. We have 2 kids. They're 8 and 11. I'm French. Fred is from Belgium, where we met years ago, hence our accent. So please bear with us. And we now live in the United States.
And 3 years ago, we went through a profound shift. Before that, we sort of knew that things are in a bad shape when it comes to, the climate and the environment. But it felt abstract, like it didn't really feel like it had anything to do with our own lives. And plus it felt pretty depressing. So we kind of, did our best to tune it out and not engage with it. And then one day, good friends of ours came to visit. And we were impressed by their courage to really grapple with this. And it made it real for us. And so, when they left, I remember we looked at each other and they said, like, if they have the courage to do this, we should be able to do it too.
And so when they left, we had this urge to learn everything we could. We read and researched and watched documentaries. And along the way, we met amazing people who also have been on a similar journey to face this reality.
And for us, facing this was a real shock. We went on what could best be described like a U-shaped journey. At first, it brought up lots of, sadness and fear and anger.
But luckily, we didn't get stuck there. We came out on the other side with lots of energy, with lots of clarity about what was important and what we wanted to do with our lives.
And after we went through this, we invited some of our friends to
Yeah.
go on a similar journey. And, this was the pandemic, so we did it on video calls.
Hi, I'm Elaine.
Yeah, I'm Frederick. And and they liked it so much that they invited some of their friends and their friends. And it started to gather steam. And at some point we figured, let's turn this into films, make them free, and see what happens.
1, 2, 3.
We met this wonderful film team. And long story short, here we are together with you to do this.
And it's not just us.
So I just wanted to show you the first minutes, and it's a bit like, oh, now you probably wanna continue watching, but you can do this online on the website, and I'm just how do I go to the next? And so yeah, it's a way to maybe look at the way we can mobilize and talk to people on the topic, especially people who are not already active and who can be a bit scared about doing something like doing a workshop on climate. And I wanted to talk to you a bit about the dimensions of impact, because I think, and in the first keynote, people were saying like, where can you truly have impact on climate? And I think a lot of people who are really trying to mobilize on the topic always ask themselves this question: is this job the job where I can have the most impact on the topic? And it's always a question. And so I think always when you choose a job, like always questioning what is the theory of change? Have they really thought about the way they want to create change? Because we have studies that show how we create change, how we mobilize. So having a project that is solid on that has really thought about their theory of change and their strategy is really important. So for us, how we believe we will create change is really focusing on a specific target audience. So talking to not, reaching to the same circles that are already convinced and active on the topic, but talking to the broad middle. So people who are not already super active. We are forgetting about climate deniers. We believe that's another project that should go and really debunk that and talk to these people. But there's like a huge chunk of people, the broad middle, who are not already mobilized. And we have them in our friends group, in our family, in our work, so we know them. And to this target audience, we want to create 3 impacts on them: an inner shift. So as I said, we don't want to just be a temporary inspiration or like a quick change, but we really want to trigger profound inner shift. And something we look at is, do they feel a before after? Do they see the future in a different way? And now it's impossible to them to think about in 10 years without thinking about the fact that there's an environmental crisis. The second one we look at is the social shift. So it's not only about individual change, but how does the group change when they go through an experience together? And we believe in the power of conversations because it has been proven in social studies. And that's something that's really important to us, especially in societies that get more and more polarized, where we see, I mean, right now, at least in France, we see a backlash on ecology and the environmental crisis. And so there's really this need to go convince the broad middle instead of just becoming more pure with the super engaged. And the last one is agency to act. So do people feel this deep change and reconnect to the way they can act meaningfully and impactfully in their community, in their workspace? And so it's really about people building collective long-term action instead of just like a quick action taking so that you feel better and you're like, okay, I've done something and I feel better. So on that, we are, of course, trying to get data. So we're still working on improving our impact collection and the way we analyze it. But we see that more than 60% of the participants are from the broad middle. It's something we're quite happy about because we knew that it was going to start with the people who are most engaged. And so the question was, will these people go and get the other circles? And on the 3 impacts I have mentioned, so for the moment, 87% of the people who are going through the week and who are part of our target audience, so this broad middle, say that the week created a before and after experience for them. The second one we look at is do people have new conversations? So it's 82% of them that feel that now they're going to have new conversations with their family and friends and colleagues. And it's 81% of them that feel they have more sense of agency on the topic. Something I wanted to talk about, because a lot of people are like, yeah, but what kind of actions do they take after? Like, do they go and block roads? And so really talking about the importance of climate conversations. And we are social animals, and so really talking about the topic is really important. And so I just wanted two extracts from 2 social studies that we really build upon to build the week. But it's really the importance of having these conversations. Sometimes we feel really good about doing some radical action with people who already think like us. But something that can also be very impactful is building these conversations and starting these conversations with people who are not part of it. So for example, and we see in countries that are becoming more and more polarized. So we see it a lot in Germany and the USA, but for example, in France, it's starting to be also bigger, is this climate of silence, of like, oh, it's becoming too political to talk about climate, so let's not just talk about it. And so this silence is really creating this pluralistic ignorance that we've talked about. So when we think people don't care, and so we don't take action because anyway, nobody cares. So also thinking about in the projects that you're working on, how can you create more conversations and more conversations with people you're not having these conversations with? That was just a few social proof. It's something, and as some of you might know, if you work on the climate cause, sometimes it's a bit depressing because you keep having the news of like, wow, we're not taking action fast enough. So we really try to connect with what people say after they go through the week, because that makes us feel happy. And one of the thing that I think one of the sentence that someone sent after having done the week that really touched me was this one of, by the end of session 3, we shared possibilities and tears in a group where tears do not come easily for some. And we have a lot of people who said they never had these conversations with their friends, and they've been friends for 30 years. And also a lot of feedback on how these conversations matter in the workspace. So far we had 86,000 people who've been invited to do the week. So it's spreading quite fast. We've done that. We've started in January. And what we see is that people do it mostly in the home environment. So it can be the neighbors, it can be their friends, it can be their family. And the second most used program is the people doing it in the work environment. And yeah, as I know, I have an audience of people who are thinking, how can I do more climate work in my work? I wanted to reinforce the importance of our engagement in the work environment. What we see, and when we talk about cognitive dissonance, is a lot of people who are really active on the topic in their life. They will actually do a lot at home and become vegetarian, but at work, it's like I put on my costume and I'm a new person. And it's just important to see that we are part of different social groups, and there are many places where we can have impact. So sometimes we'll be super active in trying to influence our friends, but we forget that we're part of a sports team where we could actually also create these conversations. Or we're part of a faith group where there are already conversations, but not this one. And so we could bring this one. And we are almost all day at work. So that's a place where we can really have a lot of impact, especially because companies do have a lot of impact on this cause. So it's like the thing we're going to do there is going to be really impactful. And so we've been seeing a lot of people starting to use the week in their company to sensitize more people. So it was this idea of we need to have a common language, common experience, a shared conversation, so that we can build from that. And so a lot of people say, now we've done the week, we can refer back to, you remember in episode 1 when they say that. And so it's like a common experience we've gone through. Some people use it to re-engage, kind of like they already have something existing and trying to have an action plan, but they're trying to have more people or to re-engage people who've gone through other projects. And so they will use it a new way through emotions and conversations. And some people use it to really transform. So they're like, we're at this stage where we've done all the quick wins, we've done the engineer work to cut CO2 emissions, and now we really need to change the way we work. And for that, we need everyone to join. And so we need to start like a cultural tipping point within our company. And so the week is, they use it because it talks to everyone, and it can be done without anyone needed to be trained. So it's kind of easy to use. And yeah, I just wanted to finish with a few learnings that I thought were interesting. I said 6, but I think only 3 were really interesting for you. So I know it's the Europe Climate Week. So just telling you that from where we stand at the week, working in different European countries, we see that they're at different stages. And so I guess, for example, France, there's been a lot of work being done by the Fresk and from like on teaching what is the environmental crisis, something really rational. So in France, where we are really useful is that we bring a new brick to that. We're really complementary of like explaining how emotions are also a way to get engaged. But for example, we work in the US where companies are still really far away from that, and they just on engineering work. And in Germany, we see it spreading more and more, but it is a polarized country on that topic. So having conversations where people can reconnect, even though they're on different places of the spectrum of like action or ideology on the topic, is a way to reconnect. Another one that was interesting is people don't resist this information. I will talk about it a bit later. But there was this thing of a lot of people telling us like, yeah, but people don't want to talk about it. And so that was something we didn't believe. We thought it was just not the right spaces. And something that we didn't know how it was going to work is, can you bring emotions at work? And so I just wanted to go a bit deeper into these two learnings. So on the one that people don't want this information, and so we need to push that into their faces. Something we've been really surprised is that a lot of people tell us, thank you, I needed that. I'm relieved that I've actually cried on that, which can seem a bit weird, but it's really uncomfortable to live in cognitive dissonance. And so a lot of people are actually really happy that they can get a space with people they love to actually reckon with this topic. So that was something, that was a big assumption, and we were relying on social studies. So we were pretty sure it was going to work, but still it's really interesting for us to have this feedback of thank you. And when you're the one explaining the climate crisis, you rarely get a thank you after. So that's an interesting one. And the second about work, we were like, okay, we see workshops happening in companies to talk about climate, but we also know that emotions are not easy to bring at work. And we've been really surprised to see that the work program is the second biggest program of the week. We had so far 22,000 people who have done or are in the process of doing the week at the moment in their company. We have around 150 groups a month that are registering to do the week in their company. Some companies are doing massive rollouts, so they really want almost everyone to join this conversation at work. And we have really good feedback and good impact coming back from companies. So that was something that was important to us, of like, we can bring emotions at work, but it's more of a personal intuition and desire. So it was like, is it going to work? And so that's really interesting to have this feedback. And I'm going to finish on that, just telling you that you can try it to get your opinion on that. It is free when you do it outside of the workplace. So you can do it with your families, you can test it with your friends. And if you want to bring it at work, then we ask for a fee per participants. You can use all of these learnings to mobilize at your job, using the week or not using the week, but just starting conversations. And yeah, if you have anything you want to discuss more or information, you can write to us at community@theweek.oo. It's a weird email address, so remember the 3 O's, but you can also find it on our website, and our website is theweek.oo. Yeah, I'm gonna finish on that, and maybe we can get to your questions and discuss a bit more. So I'm gonna stop sharing and open the chat. Yeah, maybe if anyone has a question that they wanna, or feedback or something that they wanna share, but I'll be happy to take the time to discuss that with you. Are you working with any universities? Yes, we have a program that we call the Week at Campus. So it's been part of the strategy from the beginning. We say that the week because it's emotional. We say that it's for people who are 16 and plus, though some people do it with their children who are younger, but it's, then it's parents' responsibility. So it's been used more in university settings than in high schools or schools. We've seen it spread quite a lot in business school, where the broad middle is, I think, and where the narrative needs to also be challenged. It's spreading quite fast in universities in the US. We also have a university in Cologne, in Germany, where each year she asks the students to organize the week with a group. So we have each year like 100 sessions happening in September. We have some teachers who use it, so then they might use it over 3 weeks because they see their class every week. And so it's more like autonomous. They decide to do the week with their students, and some universities take it more as part of a program of like for Earth Week or for the beginning of the year to really set a conversation, and then from there work on that. And sometimes we see it spread in universities, not with the students, but really with the administration. So someone working on CSR in the university and needing to mobilize their colleagues. So then it's more like a work environment thing. Is it answering your question, Karen? Because I see you part of a university, so of course, please use it. Yeah, and we can connect if you wanna be in connection. I know in London, ESCP has used it, so it's a business school from France that has a campus in the UK. And so I could connect you with some people who want to use it. How do you know that people take action afterwards? So we do 3 surveys. We do one right after the experience, where we're gonna mostly track the inner change, the idea of before after. We do one a month after and one 6 months after, to try to collect what happens in terms of action taking. Once again, the actions we're looking for is, do they start new conversations with people? And then, because episode 3 is quite open, so we're not pushing people into one type of action, especially because what came out of the social studies was that the broad middle can be really reactive, as they feel like they're being manipulated. And because we use emotions, we don't want people to feel like they're being emotionally manipulated into taking one type of action. So episode 3 is really open. And what most people do is they meet for a 4th session. And that's especially what we engage people to do when they're part of organizations. So in companies, most of the time they do a 4th session where they will discuss action taking of like, okay, we've had this broad conversation. Now, in our context and in our company, what it is we should do. So for example, at Decathlon in France, they're like, okay, we need to work much better on our circular economy. And so maybe not spend so much time on selling new outdoor products, but on repairing and how we can get the stuff back into the store, repair it, and re-put it on the market. So that's what we're gonna track. Something we really wanna improve is tracking on 6 months after, because people tend to not reply so much to this survey. So if we really want to have solid data, we need more of that. But there is the data with the surveys, and then we really connect it with people who are doing broad rollouts, within their faith organization or within their company. And so because we're connected to them, we know what kind of action plan they're trying to do. But because we're not looking for quick action, most of the time it's maybe a year after that we can really analyze what's happening. Does it answer your question, Felix?
Yes, it's my boyfriend's computer. That's why a female voice is answering you. Thank you. It answers my question.
Okay, no problem. Oh, I see I've missed Danny's question. How do you convince people initially less open to join? So I'm not the one doing the convincing, is the organizer doing it. I've organized it, so I've seen how I did it with my parents. What works quite well is that it's a friend of you inviting you, and they're inviting you maybe to have dinner at their home 3 times over a week. And so it's kind of like it's a social moment that you don't want to miss. So even though you're like, I'm not super into this climate topic stuff, it's, my friend Dina inviting me over for dinner. And so I don't really want to say no, or it's my neighbor. And so this invitation part of like, we're a small group, we're going to have dinner together, or we're going to have a session online. And there's a bit of peer pressure, like, like all your friends are going. And so you're not going to be the one saying, oh, I actually don't want to do that workshop. When I did it with my friends, it was quite interesting because so it's a big group of friends. And so the first ones who said yes were the people most engaged on the topic. And now they're telling other people in the group like, oh, it was a really great experience. So now I'm reorganizing it and I'm getting to the second circle. My parents, it was like, they're at my house. If I launch the video, they have to watch it with me. And so it was a bit of like, I'm a bit of I don't know if I'm a bully with my parents, but I was like, we had a hard conversation and I could see it was not going anywhere. And I was like, I need help, and I need help from, like, I need someone else to explain the problem. So I don't need to be the one like pushing the topic, but then I can just be the one sharing about how it makes me feel. But when you register for a group, we send you like IDs on how to invite people. So you have a bit of like text that you can use, and then you can change it because you know your friends or you know your colleagues. Other than conversation, do you provide IDs for actions that individuals can take? Yes. So what we do is we give them the list of the 10 most impactful actions, because most people that we talk to, the broad middle, and it's interesting because when we do interviews, if you ask them what actions have impact, they will always tell you about recycling, because I guess it's the only thing they heard about, and they have a hard time knowing what really has impact and what doesn't. So we, on the website, when you finish, you get a list of the 10 most impactful action. And then we also have a list of groups and organizations they can join, because we really believe in collective action and the fact that you're gonna stay active if you're part of a group. What we see is when it's done in an organization, people stay in the organization. So they're gonna do the action taking in their company with the groups or in their sports team. But when it's done at home, sometimes people are like, I don't know what to do after. And so we've listed organizations that are normally able to talk to the broad middle. We've also took some like more activist group for people who really like jump from the broad middle to like super, super engaged, but trying to make them join a collective so they can stay in action. Does that answer your question, Anna? Okay, great, thanks. Okay. Is there a someone, okay, Anna. Is there a recommended, Anna, did you want to add something? Because I saw you, no. Oh, we can't hear, I can't hear you. Can people, am I the only one who can't? Okay. Sorry, Anna, I couldn't hear what you were saying. You can put it in the chat and I'll read it. Is there a recommended number of people so that watching the film and having the conversation works well? Yes, most groups are around 6 or 7. We have groups that are like 300, I guess, especially done in companies. So what they will do is that they will watch the movie together, and then they will divide into smaller groups for the conversation part. So the conversation part, the important thing is that it's small enough so that people can feel safe and people can talk and share. And so it's around 4 to 7 is the right amount. We do have some people who don't feel like talking after episode 1 because they're a bit in shock. But they and we recommend that the group, if you do like a really big session and then you divide into smaller groups, if the group can stay the same for the conversation, because once you create a safe space, it's nice that you reconnect to the same people so that you feel okay to share in this group. So Anna, I'm looking at your answer. So Angela, thanks for sharing. Great idea to watch together and split up. Anna, it's hard sometimes to give friends some simple positive things they can do that will make a difference. So a list that they can maybe just pick 1 or 2 to get. Yeah, is a great idea. Yeah, and I mean, I see myself like sometimes you just don't have an idea of the difference of impact. And so you're going to spend so much time on one thing that actually has very little impact where you could do something else. Bron, how do you move people past the top 10 most impactful action? Example, help them connect their work directly to impact. Is that in the scope of this? So it's not in our scope to follow up with people over the years. So that's why we try to connect them to groups where they can have like long-term engagement. We're more of like a spark. That's also why we do it in groups, so that people stay connected to the group. And I see it with my friends, like now we have a WhatsApp group, and so like even if it's been a year, like, oh, you said you wanted to do that, where are you on that? So it's kind of like also yeah, we are witnessing each other, and we're like, you said you were going to do that, so have you done it? What we see is that when it's done at work with colleagues, so when it's done at home, then it doesn't always have impact with the work because people tend to compartmentalize quite a lot. But when it's done at work, then people will be like, what do we do at work? And when it's done at work with the support of the big boss, then we can see massive change. We have seen groups of colleagues pushing for the week within their company without the support. It's creating a lot of pressure. So it's also interesting because it continues spreading. And then, some people are like, if the company doesn't get behind this, I might at one point want to change work because I'm becoming fed up. So it is a way for some people within the company to mobilize, to put pressure on top management for change to truly happen. So it's been used in very different ways. We're seeing top management being like, we want to do a large rollout. And sometimes I think they don't fully get the kind of change it can lead to. So they're like, oh, we doing sensitization, so it's not yet action. But then when people are sensitized, they're like, okay, now what do you do? And so it's creating this this pressure. And sometimes we see some colleagues doing it on their own, and then it spreads, and then at one point it's like pushing top management to act on that. So it's interesting to see the different ways people will use the tool. I hope it answers what you wanted to say. And Nicolette, is it available in multiple languages? Yes. So we have it in 3 languages, English, French, and German. And then we have subtitles from different countries, mostly so European countries, because European and well, US, they speak English, but we are not super keen on the weak spreading in continents where we feel like it wouldn't make so much sense to have white people saying what you should do. So we've been mostly focusing on Europe and Northern America. And I'm wondering if we have Hungarian subtitles. I think it's possible because we have quite a lot. Like volunteers have been like doing a lot of subtitles. If you go to the website, you'll see there's a thing at the top with the different languages that you can have subtitles. For sure it will not be spoken in Hungarian, but you could have subtitles. Thank you, Bron. Thank you. Yeah, I see time is up. Yeah, thank you, everyone. I felt like talking a lot, so I hope it was interesting, and I hope you can use some of the things I've shared with you. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can use the week. If you do, please tell us how it was. We're always looking for feedback. And yeah, if you need anything, you can connect through our email community at theweek.oo. Thank you, everyone. And I can say a bit if some people had questions they wanted to ask, and I'm gonna stop the recording.
Thank you, Pauline. Great session.
Thank you.